All right, Lonesome Lands podcast, and I am here with Harriet Hageman, who has been on my list for a long time of someone to talk to, and now we're both here at the RCAF convention in Deadwood, South Dakota, and we get a few minutes.
Yes.
I'd like to be able to go all the way through, like, where you've come from and all that kind of stuff, but I feel like, I guess just real quick, like, where you're from and your ranching background and all that.
I grew up on a ranch outside of Fort Laramie, Wyoming, which is about 100 miles north of Cheyenne, so the eastern side of the state. And my family, a lot of my family members are still in ranching, so it is an industry that's near and dear to my heart, and I would say probably had the most impact on what I have become.
Yes. So if you're not familiar, she's the state representative for Wyoming. And I guess just to get into the issues, the one that I appreciate you most for is your fight for the getting rid of the mandated EID tag. And I guess, do you just want to give kind of an update of where we are on that?
Sure. So, as you know, in the spring of 2019, the USDA APHIS issued a 2-page document on their website that required all of our cattle and bison producers to start using RFID, or radio frequency identification ear tags, by January 1, 2023. I was contacted by RCAF as well as some ranchers, and I ended up filing a lawsuit challenging the legality of that for a variety of reasons, and eventually we got the USDA to back down and to withdraw it. And so since then, in the intervening 6.5 years, we've really been fighting hard against the USDA's effort to force this on our cattle and bison producers for a variety of reasons. I have absolutely no problem if someone wants to use EID ear tags and that fits with their operation. But we know that there are some real problems with it. One, it's already a shortage. Anytime that the government mandates something, mandates that our citizens use something, you're immediately going to create a shortage situation and increase the cost. I worry that this kind of a mandate is going to further vertically integrate the industry. I know the big guys want it. The ear tag manufacturers obviously want it. The packers want it, but our independents don't. I also worry about how the federal government and even state governments and others may very well be able to use this information and the data that is gathered to impact the industry. So we can talk about specifics if you'd like to, but that's kind of an overview of where we are. The final rule came out in October, November of 2024. I have tried a couple of different legislative mechanisms in Congress to block it. We're continuing to do that, and then we're also working with USDA to see whether we can get them to back down and withdraw that rule.
Mm-hmm. And so since the rules went in, there's been a lot of changes at USDA, or,
yes, a new administration.
So, right. And so, there's a lot of hope from people like me that something would change. Do you want to just talk about where you see USDA now? Are you happy with how things are going, or?
So, USDA is obviously an agency that I support, and I think there are some really good people who have historically worked at USDA. I think I like the new leadership. I'm excited about what Brooke Rollins what she is looking at doing, what Secretary Rollins is looking at doing. I know that she's hired some really, really good people from the industry to assist her in implementing her agenda. And I think that there is potential that we might be able to address the CID mandate. But as I indicated when speaking on the stage an hour or so ago, there's kind of a split within USDA as to whether this was a good thing or not. And so that's the challenge that we have right now, is you have advocates for the mandate in the administration right now, and you have people who were opposed to it. They're trying to work that out. We recently met with some folks from USDA, and it was very clear that there is a split within the agency itself as to whether it should be mandatory. So we'll continue talking to him, explaining our reasons, and seeing if we can prevail on why we need to back off of this mandatory EID requirement.
Do you see any, is there reasoning behind the split? Are you noticing, past administration holdovers are the ones for it, and new people coming in would be against it, or?
I think there's some of both.
Okay.
And I think that what it is I think people sincerely believe that this is one of the best ways to make sure that we have a robust traceability system. disease traceability system. Now, I don't agree with that. I believe that there are other ways that we already have a robust traceability system. We have brands and back tags and ear tags and tattoos. We have a very robust traceability system in the country. I also want to say that if you are concerned about foreign pathogens coming into our country, then maybe we need to be looking at the import market. And that especially is why I advocate for the MCOOL, or the mandatory country of origin labeling, because I think most people in America actually want to buy American beef, but beef coming from other countries can be repackaged here and be sold as USA beef. So we don't even know necessarily what meat is from the United States and what meat is originating elsewhere. So I think that from a traceability standpoint, there is concerns about that. But I would also say, if you have concerns about the hookworm, and if you've got foot and mouth disease and those kinds of things, don't import them. Don't import from those countries that have those kinds of disease outbreaks, number one. Let's try to block it at the border. The other thing I would say is I am very disappointed in this last administration for moving Plum Island to the middle of Kansas. We saw with the Wuhan laboratory, things can escape. Pathogens can escape, either by accident or intentionally. Plum Island was a perfect place to be studying a lot of these different diseases and things, because it was out in the middle of nowhere and nobody could get there, and you couldn't get those pathogens back to the mainland. Well, now they've put that laboratory right in the middle of cattle country in Kansas, and I don't think that was a good decision.
What is the reasoning behind that?
I don't know. I think probably ease of management, the expenses, and this is supposedly a state-of-the-art facility where, this could never happen. But it happened in Montana, 30 or 40 years ago with a noxious weed. I believe it was leafy splurge. So it can happen.
Right.
And we need to be really fighting hard against it. So I would look at other ways of making sure that we're protecting the health and well-being of our livestock industry, rather than going with a mandate that could be used to really injure our independent producers.
Another issue that I've been kind of beating over the head for a past couple of years, checkoff reform.
Yes.
I don't know. I guess, what's your opinion? Now there's the OFF Act, I think, has been reintroduced. I've talked about voluntary, I feel like is the way to go. I guess, what's your opinion on?
Well, I think that there are definitely some very serious issues with the program. And I think ever since it came into being, I think that there's such a massive amount of money associated with it that I think that we know that there are places, there are different organizations that have created real financial problems for the checkoff, and perhaps people are getting checkoff money who shouldn't be getting checkoff money. I also want to say, where is the robust advertising campaign that the beef checkoff dollars are supposed to be supporting? I want to know, where is the, quote, beef, it's what's for dinner campaign? That one was obviously highly successful, and that was paid for by checkoff dollars. It was one of the first advertising campaigns that they implemented, but my gosh, that was 20 years ago, 18 years ago, whatever the number is. Yeah. Why aren't we seeing more of those robust campaigns? But not only in terms of like beef, like we say, beef, it's what's for dinner. Those checkoff dollars should potentially be going for supporting the ag industry as a whole. This is what the ag industry does to preserve the American way of life. This is what the beef industry does in terms of providing some of the highest quality protein that you can consume. These are the things that beef does, that it's one of the most efficient ways. Raising cattle is one of the most efficient and effective ways of managing our BLM and Forest Service lands in the western United States. I just see that if you're going to have an advertising campaign, it ought to be a bit more holistic, where it's actually supporting the industry as well. And I've never really seen that, with all of the global warming and climate change nonsense. The cattle industry has really been under scrutiny with a lot of misinformation out there. If you're going to have checkoff dollars, it seems to me that ought to be one of the things that you look at, is just educating the American people as to how important the cattle industry is.
Right. You weren't here last night, but we saw a video, and I know being in Wyoming, you're definitely heavily involved in the energy industry. He played the video of Donald Trump saying that climate change is a hoax, or the agenda is a hoax. Where are we I feel like I still see the windmills going up, and the whole subsidies coming in on different things. How is that going?
Well, one of the things that's happening with the reconciliation package is we're cutting off those subsidies. Not as quickly as I probably would have preferred, but a lot shorter time frame than what was originally proposed.
So there's a time frame on them in that package?
Yes, and it is December of 2026, which is only 18 months away. And you may think, well, why would you keep funding those things for the next 18 months? But keep in mind, with any of these projects, and they're $100 million plus projects, they have to be able to get private capital as well. And your banks and your lenders are not going to be looking at this industry and seeing the dollar signs that they previously saw. As we start cutting off those subsidies and tax credits, you're going to see more of these companies who are not going to be able to go forward with the plans that they had. The wind and solar industry especially are incredibly dependent on tax credits and subsidies from the federal government. Without those industries really can't survive because they can't produce sufficient energy to make them cost effective. So yes, there are projects that are still going up, but I think a lot of the projects that they anticipated constructing over the next 5 years, a lot of them are most likely on hold and may never ever go forward. So that's why you kind of do have to give them an off-ramp. People and companies have invested an awful lot of money in this infrastructure. You can't pull the money day after tomorrow. So it's giving them a year and a half to basically get their business in order. But eventually, I think some of these companies recognize these could potentially be stranded assets. Also on the national and international stage, the recent G7 conference on their agenda was actually, initially was on their agenda because it has been for years now, was climate change. With President Trump being elected in November, they scrapped that agenda entirely and they never even discussed it. So your G7 countries, they're not focusing on it. And I think that what happened in Spain and Portugal has really woken people up. The fact that they lost all electricity instantaneously because their system collapsed because they have too much wind and solar, and they're not even meeting close to their full demand, and it's still too much for the system to be stable. Their system has been destabilized. Germany has deindustrialized because of so-called climate change, and it's going to destroy their economy. It already is. They pay massive amounts more for electricity and energy than we do. What I mean is that the chickens are coming home to roost, and for people like me who for the last 20 years have been trying to say what you're doing is wrong, costly, ineffective, and based upon a house of cards, I think that's being borne out.
Well, that is wonderful to hear.
Yeah. Well, Greta Thunberg is having to find a different, a different line of work.
She's got a new protest to go to.
She's got a new protest to go to. So it's just going by the wayside.
Right. And I think we're probably out of time, but the one thing we keep saying over, me and Chad, we have our weekly show, and we say, we need more Harriet Hagemans. I guess I'm from Iowa. How do we get more Harriet Hagemans, or for somebody like me or someone who's not in Wyoming to reach out and to, what's the most effective way of saying, we want to remove EID mandates, we want MCOOL, we want, all this climate stuff to go away?
You need to be contacting your legislators.
Is it phone calls? Is it emails?
It's contacting their staff. It's everything. And you need to say, you need to support Harriet, because I'm in Congress, I'm in the U.S. Congress. You need to be calling your congressmen and your senators, and you need to be, everybody does, and saying, we want you to support Harriet Hageman's bill. We want you to support getting rid of this. I need more people to reach out to their members and say, we don't want this anymore. This is not good stuff. Because the squeaky wheel really is who gets the grease. And if there is a real cascade of people saying, we don't want you, we do want MCOOL, we don't want mandatory EID, they do listen. I listen to my constituents. Mm-hmm. I do. Yeah. And I respond to them and engage with them. So hopefully you could get some relief that way.
Right. Well, I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming on, and good luck.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yes, thanks a lot for coming.